Hi there. In this tutorial, I'm going to just talk about using Blender to produce a file which is 3D printable. I'm not going to go into all the details of actually 3D printing it, but I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks about modeling a basic object such as the one I have on the screen now, a small flower pot. And I actually sprayed it with some terracotta paint, which I think makes it look quite convincing. And it's perfectly serviceable as a real flower pot. And you can see I've put my name on there just to show that you can do that. The basic techniques I'm going to show are going to be applicable to anything that you want to 3D print. And I'm just going to talk about some of the things to consider when modeling for a 3D print. If you enjoy these tutorials, don't forget to click like and subscribe. Feel free to comment or ask questions or even dislike the video. And if you don't like the video, I'd be very interested to see what the issues you spotted were so that I can improve going forward. If you're a Patreon supporter, I do upload these files for any use available to my Patreon supporters, and I upload tutorials quite regularly. So let's start the tutorial. So to begin with, we'll make a basic pot. So one of the first things obviously is to have some idea in mind of exactly how big the object's going to be. Now, unless you're planning to print it in several pieces, which is perfectly possible, there will be a limitation on your 3D printer. So mine is approximately 20 by 15 centimeters for the print bed and about 15 to 20 centimeters in height. So if I want to print in one piece, which I will for this, that's the maximum size I could print at. So in order to ensure that I stay aware of how big my object is, if we come down to here, the scene properties, you can see we've got a units option. If we click in there, the default is metric, and I'll stick with metric as I'm in Europe. Obviously you can select imperial if you want, and then the scale. So in theory, you can leave that at 1. So by default, it's going to be in meters. Obviously, I haven't got a huge printer, so I'm actually going to change that to millimeters. And that's the only setting really that I need to worry about. So as I don't have one there, I'm just going to add a default cube just so that we can see a few other things. And now if I press N, the right-hand menu comes up and I can see some basic dimensions. So I haven't changed anything yet, but you can see this cube is 2000 millimeters per side. So that's rather large. So realistically, if I, for example, wanted to print this on my printer, the maximum size would be 15 centimeters or 150 millimeters per side. So if I put 150 in there, you can see that's now a much smaller cube. Now, what you might want to do is set this to the size of your print bed. So I would have an X of 200 millimeters and a Y of 150 and a Z of 200 or 150. So in terms of the print area, that is my usable print volume there. So that's just something worth bearing in mind. Another thing worth bearing in mind is scale. So sometimes things don't quite work as expected because Blender by default remembers how you scaled an object. So before you export it, if not earlier than that, you will want to apply the scale. And generally I apply it as I go along. So you can see the scale isn't 1 here, which it was to start with. It's been rescaled to get the size that we now have. So if we Control A, we can just apply scale, and now that's 1. So that, if you like, that's the native size of that object. I also tend to go into orthographic rather than perspective view. So just press 5 on the numpad if you're using a PC at least, and then you don't get any parallax confusion. So another element that we will need to make sure we've enabled, if we go up to Edit, Preferences, and select Add-ons, and if we put Print in here, make sure you've got the 3D Print toolbox enabled, because that's going to be useful later, and you'll see that it comes up down here. So let's make ourselves a simple pot. So I'm going to add under mesh a circle to begin with, and you notice it's way too big. So I'm going to make the X and Y. We'll start with 50 millimeters in size. So that's 5 centimeters, and I'll apply the scale to that. I could have just added a cylinder, of course. So I've gone into edit mode now, press E and then GZ. I'm just going to make this fairly arbitrary at the moment, and then I'm going to scale it out a bit because obviously pots typically get a little wider at the top. And then we'll have a look at what we've got. So my pot's just over 6 centimeters tall. I'm going to make it a nice round 10 centimeters tall or 100 millimeters. And I think what we'll do is widen the top there slightly as well. And I think I'm going to widen the base now. So it's just really looks. You can of course put an image of a pot and model it on that, or you can just do what looks good. In edit mode, Control R, and I get a loop cut. Left click once and I can bring it up to say somewhere about there. I'll go to face select and I will select that ring of faces just there. And I'm just going to press I and just bring that in slightly there. I'm going to use that in a short while. So back to edit mode, I'm going to select that inner ring, press E, click, and then scale in most of the way in. I want a hole in the bottom of my pot, and so that's that. Now press Alt and click to select that ring of vertices, Control B, and I'll just put a slight bevel on there. You can have a completely sharp edge, and now rather than modeling the inside, which I could do, I'm going to make life easy by just adding a modifier, which is a solidify modifier. And this is again where applying scale is important, and you notice I haven't applied scale yet. So if I now Control A and select scale, you'll notice things changed slightly once the scale was applied. So that looks quite thick. So the thickness is 10 millimeters or a centimeter. So that's way too thick. So let's say 1 millimeter initially, which is probably too thin. That's more like a plastic cup than a pot. We'll go for 5 millimeters, see what that looks like. In terms of proportions, that's getting towards where I would think it should be. And we can decide whether it's internal or external. So by that I mean this offset can be negative or it can be positive. You can see it's basically going in or out. If we go out, it makes it slightly bigger, of course. So we'll go in. So that's looking okay. Now I could leave that as is, but what I'm actually going to do now is apply that. We want to keep things as simple as possible. And at this point, if we go into edit mode, I can decide how I'm going to deal with this top. I think rather than applying another bevel, what I'm going to do is Control R and then use the mouse wheel just to add a second ring of vertices and click again. And then G, Z, just pick them up slightly. And that just gives us a nice rounded top rather than a sharp top. And then if we go into wireframe view, we can actually see we've got a slight problem here now. You can see that bevel that we put here. I should probably have added the solidify modifier before I beveled, but we can fix it. I'm going to select that ring of vertices along the bottom. This might cause us a problem when printing. And then G, Z just to lift that up, and then scale just to push it out slightly. And now if we look in solid view, we've got our bevel back. And if we go to wireframe again, we can see exactly what that looks like. And then I guess to help water flow out, but also to make it look a little more pleasing, let's bevel there, Control B, and a small bevel on the bottom. Again, not strictly necessary, but helpful. Now, one thing to be aware of when 3D printing is overhangs. What that means is if it's an FDM printer, so a fused deposition printer, which is the most common kind, it's melting filament and then pasting it down initially onto the print bed and then onto the previous layers. If, for example, you had a shape that had an overhang, and I will demonstrate what an overhang is now. So if I take a few faces here and extend them out like that, then this face here is an overhang if this was printed this way up. If I wanted to print this shape, I would actually print it that way up, and that way there is no overhang. And everything would print fine, there'd be no problem. But printing this way wouldn't be so straightforward. It's still possible to print it. So there's two things you can do. One is that the software you use for what's called slicing, where it's converted into layers, will usually allow you to add what are called supports. So basically a structure underneath here, which is usually very low density, on which this overhang can print. Usually leaves a bit of a bad surface finish here, so you don't always want to do that if you can avoid it. Can also be a bit tricky and is quite wasteful because you've got all that plastic that you're then going to rip off. So if you can avoid overhangs like this, that's better. You might even have a shape. I know this is two shapes, but you might even have a shape like this, where there are joins here, but you'll find the filament will sag as it goes from one side to the other. If the difference in distance is quite low, ignore the dodgy normals there, but if it's quite a short gap, generally speaking, it's going to print fine, especially if you adjust your settings. But even then, it's not ideal. So obviously even there, you would, for a shape like this, you would turn it over that way. How is that relevant for our pot? Well, I've created an overhang here, and it's that face there. So this vertical face is fine, and this horizontal face is fine, but this face is an overhang. However, generally speaking, you may need to tweak your settings, but anything up to about 45 degrees isn't usually too much of a problem, because essentially, depending on how thin your layers are, each one is sort of half on the previous layer and just sticking out the edge of it a little bit, if that makes sense. If I was to visualize a layer as this cube, if that's the first layer that it's just put down on the print bed, the next layer is going to be like that. If it's sort of up to about 45 degrees, perhaps even there. And then the next layer there, and so on. So there is something to support that layer, and this distance here is only a fraction of a millimeter, and so before it sags very much, because it's hot melted plastic, it will have cooled enough that it solidifies, even if you haven't got a cooling fan, and I don't have one. So that will generally work fine, and you can get away with even more extreme overhangs than 45 degrees depending on your printer. The more modern printers will handle them better, especially if they've got cooling, so the plastic's cooled by a fan pretty much as soon as it's put down. So you'll need to experiment with your print settings and with your model. So I'm not worried about that overhang or the overhang that's out here. I'm actually going to create another overhang now, and this is an overhang too, of course, in reality. So the reason I created these faces here is because I wanted to also add the traditional thicker area here. So I'm going to scale, but Shift Z, so it doesn't scale on the vertical axis, out slightly there. And I think just for make it look okay, I'm going to scale that one out slightly as well. So essentially just thickening up the outer edge there. Now at this point that might be all you want to do, but I'm going to go into how we can just make it a little bit more interesting. However, before I do anything else, what I also want to do is add some more vertices, because I'm going to add some detail into the side of here, some text. So I need some more vertices just to help with making that look good. So the obvious thing to do is just to go to the modifiers and add a subdivision surface. Now you can see I've lost a lot of detail there, and there are a number of things we can do to restore that detail. First of all, let's Control R and add another ring of vertices there and drag that down to just above where the bevel begins, and then do it again and the same that way. Control R in there and we'll put two vertices, GG with the top one selected, and lift that up, and then GG and slide that one down. This is called sliding vertices. You can now see that's restored most of that detail. It's not quite right in the middle here, so Control R and slide that into there. Control R in the middle there, and that one we can just scale Z again in here. I'm not quite taking it to the very edge, I'm just taking it close, and you can see although the edges are smooth, they look a lot better. And I need to add another one here just to take it out to that edge, because essentially subdivision surface will take an edge. I go into wireframe view and add a cube. If I add a subdivision surface to that one, so I've added one level, if I set that down, it's one level of subdivision surface. What you can now see is where I had three vertices here on the edge, it's subdivided that line or face and subdivided that one, and then put a connection between those two vertices that is halfway between the two. So you just see it's added extra geometry to take the line of a smooth curve. But what that also does, of course, is where we want some edges, we may lose them. Now, if it's just for rendering, we can select a set of vertices, Control E, and just say mark sharp, but that's not necessarily going to work when it comes to 3D printing. So it's best to do it with additional geometry like I did. And then we can right click and just say shade smooth so we can see, because when you 3D print, you're going to lose a lot of the finest detail anyway, depending on how big your object is. You may not lose all of the faceting, but you could see it in mine. I only had to do a very small amount of sanding on it before I painted it, and it was pretty smooth. It was perfectly acceptable, depending on how thick your paint is too, of course. And if you want to, you can sharpen that line up there as well. See, that's made it a little sharper. So that's fine. And essentially that's the pot made, but I wanted to add some text to mine as well, just to make it some more interesting. So let's add some text. Press R and select X, 90, just so that it's vertical. I'm just going to scale it down so it's in the same sort of view as our pot. I'm going to move it ahead of the pot too, so that I can get an idea how my text fits on the pot. So now we've got this little text icon available here, and we can select the font that we want. So under here, just under regular, it'll take a little while. A word of warning here, the more complicated the font that you select, the more work it's going to take to make it printable as a 3D print. So just bear that in mind. If you, for example, selected something like this, you're going to be spending some hours to get this to work and to be printable. It's better to select a simpler font rather than a more complex one. So I'll go with this one. It's got a nice sort of rounded look to it, and we'll say open font. So I'm going to move that to the side so we can see it better. So I've just written my name there, and it's still essentially a curve at the moment. And before I do anything else with it, I'm going to Shift D and just put a copy of it off to one side in case I want to revert back to it. So back to this version, and let's put that back in front of the pot reasonably close to the pot, about the height that I want it and reasonably centered. And now I'll go to modifiers and we'll select shrink wrap. We name our pot as flower pot, and then for our text we can select the flower pot, and you can see it's sort of shrunk it to it. I'm going to say above surface and just say a very small offset above the surface, so about 0.5 millimeter. Going back to my pot, I'm going to increase the subdivision surface, and you can see that's improving the text. So it's not changing the shape of the pot, but what it is doing is increasing the number of vertices. The render one doesn't matter really, but if you look here, we've got 65,000 vertices. Put that up and it's now 250,000 vertices. And if you want nice smooth text, you will need quite a few, so that's something worth bearing in mind. You could of course just increase the number of vertices in the area that you want to add text. You don't need it over the whole pot, but I'll just do it the way I have for now. Don't worry about these issues with the geometry at the moment. So that's formed our text with the curve that we want. And before I apply it, I'm now going to right click and just say convert to mesh, and that will also apply the modifier. So you can see this is now a mesh object, slightly curved in the way that our pot is curved, but it's also got a different curve from top to bottom. So now you can see there's a lot of geometry in here. If we go to face select, and I select one face in the first letter, and then Control L, we can select the whole lot. Press X and say dissolve faces, and for the S, that's worked fine. And then you'll find some letters, in fact quite a few of them, it doesn't work, and that's because of this more complex shape. But just do it to the ones that will work. First of all, this one won't work because it's got that loop in the middle, and this one will. So we've got two letters there that I just need to spend a bit more time on. So I'm just going to press K, and that is the knife tool, and just to put a cut there, just really controlling where things are going to happen, and do the same somewhere about there, and the same over here and here. So now still in face select mode, I'm just going to press C, left click, and just go and select all these vertices. And I've missed one at the top there, so we'll add that one back in and just zoom in and check that one. And now if I press X and dissolve faces, that worked fine. Control L, unselect that face because we've already done it, and say X, dissolve faces, and there we go. And exactly the same. I'm just going to do it the other way with this one. I'm going to unselect the faces over here, and there's just one face I don't want to select, so X, dissolve faces. So now we've got much more simple geometry. So I'm going to say E, and then click, and then scale ever so slightly, and GY, just to give it some thickness. If I shift H, you can see what I've done. So I've created a thicker geometry. If we look from above, can probably scale that in slightly more just to give us some sensible geometry there. It doesn't matter too much. And then Alt H to bring our pot back. So that is now, if I look in wireframe, embedded in our pot. It's not part of the pot model, but it is embedded in the pot, which is what I wanted. You could join that to the pot and have that sticking out. You have got the issue of overhangs, but if they're fairly small, it's still going to work in the majority of cases. One of the things it's worth doing at this point to help you see what's going on is click up here and then select cavity. It won't always show it, but it will show it better. But the next thing we need to do is click in here and select face orientation. So essentially blue is good, red is not. So what that means with this red text here is that the normals are flipped. So this red is an inside face, should be inside the object, not outside it. So I'm going to go into edit mode, select all the vertices, go up to mesh and say normal, recalculate outside. And in the majority of cases, it will successfully do that. So if I now hide the pot, we can see those are all outside faces. That's very important for the next activity. What I tend to do is give at least some of the objects a material as well that we can see in the viewport, so come down to viewport display and give it a green color or whatever, just to make it easier to see what I'm doing. So I can see that that's jutting out. If I was to join this to the pot and 3D print it, depending on your slicer software, it might 3D print okay or it might not. In fact, what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to select the text and the pot and duplicate them. And we'll call that relief. And essentially that means this text is going to jut from the surface. As I said, you don't want to go very far because of the overhang that you're creating. We'll bring that forward slightly. And then we would join it, Control J, but you can see that's caused a problem because I've still got the quite large subdivision surface modifier on there. So we'll undo that, and it took a little while to do as well, and you can see we've got an awful lot of faces, almost 1 million vertices down there now. So we've undone that. We actually don't need all these subdivisions now because we've already done the modification to the shape of this object. So we'll come back down to say 2 subdivisions here, and we'll make sure we do that to both pots. And I'm actually going to apply it in both cases as well, because we don't need this to be active anymore. So having applied the subdivision surface, we can just join them. If I just join them, if I go into edit mode, we have faces on the inside here as well. So there's that face, and that is inside. So that may well confuse the slicing program. A good slicing program will probably handle it and realize that that face shouldn't exist, but they won't always get it right, and sometimes they'll try to print this as a separate object that just happens to be embedded in the pot, and that won't always work out as planned. So if you are just going to join these shapes together, you'd be better off removing that face, but you'll still potentially have problems because these faces, while embedded in that surface, are not really joined to it. There aren't vertices joining these two together. So for both this method and what I'm going to do with this pot over here, you're better off using Boolean. Blender doesn't always do Booleans as well as we'd like, and most of the time that's because our models aren't great. The first thing you can do to make sure you have a success using Booleans in Blender is to make sure that your geometry is tidy and all the normals are pointing in the right direction, and that's why we use face orientation to check. Those little red bits there, that's hopefully not a problem, but worth investigating. If I zoom in here, it's just where we've got a very sharp edge. I don't think there's any problem with the geometry there, but it's worth double checking. So there might be a problem there. You can see there's something going on here, for example. So I think that face got moved down somewhere along the line. I don't actually need all these vertices just here, so cleaning that up will make things work a lot better. So just X, dissolve vertices, and now we've just got a line joining those two together. And we can do the same here. Must have grabbed some vertices I didn't mean to. X, dissolve vertices. And even these vertices down here, they're not necessary, they're surplus to requirements. So let's select those, not that bottom one. Dissolve those and dissolve those. So that's now much cleaner geometry. There may still be some issues, but it's certainly looking better than it was. So now if we go to the pot, we can add a modifier, which is our Boolean modifier. This is text2. So we'll select text2, and you can see it's made a mess of it at the moment. And we'll say union for this one. We don't have to worry too much about this area here, because that's not real geometry, that's render artifacts. And what we can do is we can select our text too, and we can just click the little eye symbol there to vanish it, so we can see what's really going on. If I set this to shade flat again, then all of that problem geometry, which would be a problem for a render, goes away, and we can now see that it looks fine. The reason it looked odd is because I had it set to shade smooth, and so Blender was trying to create rendered geometry, not real geometry, to smooth between one face and another. And because this is 90 degrees, that doesn't work. So if I apply that one, it looks okay, and then go into Edit View and Wireframe, we can have a look at what sort of job it did, and it looks pretty fair. So you can now see that these faces are actually joined to these faces. They're part of the same geometry. They're not just stuck on the surface or embedded in it. And that worked fairly well because of the preparation we did first in making sure the geometry was good. Booleans struggle with problem geometry. And again, that's really where all the work comes if you use a much more complex shape when you try to apply it. If you've got, say, a complex model and you're just sticking it on the surface, then as long as the point at which it contacts this surface is simple, then it should be okay. So I would say that one is fine. And if we give the pot sort of terracotta colour, we can start to see what that might look like. So what I did with my pot is I actually did counter relief or inset text. Let's give it the same material. So we've got our flower pot selected. Again, we add the Boolean modifier. We've obviously applied our subdivision surface, but only at 2 levels. I'm going to set it to shade flat again as well. We'll add the Boolean modifier. We'll select our text. And this time I'm going to say difference. So if I vanish my text, you can see it's created an inset version of the text. Obviously you need to make sure it doesn't penetrate too deeply or it'll go out the other side. But you can see that's fairly clean. Again, we do have overhangs in these upper parts here. So if you want to help to manage those, what you can do is first of all apply the modifier, go into edit mode, and then select this internal face and Alt S and scale it slightly. Don't have to do it very much, but you can see what that's done is that's no longer a completely horizontal face in there. You may need to move it around a little as well. I'd already done that to some extent by scaling it when I created the text. In theory, you could even put a bevel in there. But as you saw on the pot I had, that seemed to work quite well with just a shallow overhang, and it came out, I think, quite impressive. So that's obviously a very simple shape, but how do I check that this is now printable? Before I do that, what I am going to do is just add something to cause a problem. Because it's a very simple shape, I think this will probably be perfectly printable as it is. So I'm just going to add a cylinder, and I'm just going to push that into there. I'm going to duplicate that pot and then ruin my model by joining those together. So I've just added this little cylinder on the side of my pot. So I'm going to press N again, and because, as you recall, under preferences I've enabled the 3D print toolbox, I have this 3D print tab here. So go into edit mode, ideally be in vertex select mode, unselect everything. I suggest being in wireframe mode initially, and then just click check all. Depending on how many vertices there are, it may take a second or two, and then you're interested in this. I'm quite interested that it's actually saying there's no problem, because that's not true. It does show some intersect faces. So essentially, if it says non-manifold edges 0, then it's probably printable. It does tell you about overhangs because you can see them here. So it's saying that there are some overhanging faces. So if I click that, it shows me where they are. So pretty much where you'd expect them to be. Down the bottom here, where it's actually on the print bed, so that's fine. And I've got some overhanging faces here. And of course, all of the tops of my letters are all considered to be overhangs. But I'm aware of those, so it's not a problem. Now, I expected this to cause a problem because I expected this to make my shape non-manifold. So let me just demonstrate. I'm just going to remove that now then, and I'm going to make my pot non-manifold. So I'm going to select that face and I'm going to delete it. So there's a little hole in there now, and then we'll check again. And you now notice it's telling me we have 4 non-manifold edges. Manifold means that you've got a genuine solid shape that has an inside and an outside. When I do this, then the shape does not have an inside and an outside. Effectively, if you were to run around the face of this object, eventually you'd come to this hole and you'd be running around inside the object. So it actually doesn't really have an inside and an outside because this is the virtual world, and you can get away with this sort of thing in a render, but you can't in a 3D print. Or you may get away with it if your slicing software is good enough to fill in holes, which many of the modern softwares are these days. If I click that, you can see it saying, there you go, you've got a problem there. So I could just press F and fill that back in. We might also have a problem if I join some of those faces up. So something looks slightly odd there, but let's check it now. So now it's saying I've got 5 non-manifold edges. And if I go to wireframe and say, show me those, there they are. And that starts to get you to look at what the problem is. So I've removed that, check all of them, and I've got non-manifold edges 0. So intersect faces are essentially where you've got a face that penetrates another. Generally speaking, your slicer software is going to handle those. Most of those intersecting faces have been removed by using the Boolean, but there's still 18 left. So if we click that, you can see there's a few areas. Now, as I say, generally speaking, that's going to be okay. We can actually see that those are the back faces of the object. So it will be where they're not completely contiguous with the surface as you would expect it to be. If you want to, you can play around with those and just investigate, see if it needs fixing. Very often what I end up doing, if I feel I need to, or if it doesn't print properly, is look at things like this where you've got a couple of vertices near each other and join them together. And what I should have said with your text, so if I just convert this now to a mesh and we go into edit view, what you can do before you even do anything else, just to make life easier, is right click it in edit mode with all the vertices selected and say merge vertices by distance, and then make sure you can see your text as you put this distance up. So 1/10 of a millimeter hasn't really made much difference, so 10 millimeters is obviously making a big difference and we don't want to do that, but we could do 0.25 of a millimeter and we can see that didn't remove anything. 0.5, so 10 removes too much, I think. So 5 removed 86 vertices, and then that simplified the lettering to start with, again making it easier to do this. So the main thing is that you have that non-manifold and no bad edges, but like I say, you may want to tweak a few bits and pieces, such as here. There's no real need for those two vertices to exist there separately, so I could just say M and merge at center, and now there's just one vertex there on that face. We might not need quite as many of that to describe the curve there, for example. Really, that's all there is to making a very simple object 3D printable, and I think the pot's quite a good example. If you have a 3D printer and you have Blender, I recommend you giving that a go. As I said, do make sure that your item is the right size for your printer and make sure the scale is applied. The final thing to do, of course, is to come up to File, say Export and STL. And one little thing to be aware of when you do that, wherever you're going to export it to in order to pull it into your slicer, the default is that selection only is not selected, which means all the different versions or whatever you've got in your scene, for example your text, will all be exported, whereas usually you only want the thing that you were planning to export sent out. So you need to click that in there, and then it will just export the object you've got selected. A number of times I've done that and then brought it into my slicer and wondered why it was so huge, and it's because I had 5 or 6 versions of the object, not the one that I meant to print. I'm not going to go into all of the slicer stuff, but obviously if you pull that into your slicer, you can then have a look and see if that thinks it's okay, and if there's problems, come back into Blender to have a play with it. But if you've done that 3D print check and it's manifold, in all probability the slicer will be fine with it, and there's a very good chance it will print. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, let me know. I'll make the source file for this pot available to my patrons as normal. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks a lot.